If I am to become a art professional, then I need to fully understand what the value of art is. I need to know that I'm doing something worthwhile. I need to know how to price my work and why it is I do what I do. I'm not too sure at this stage I actually know what the value of art is. Take this for example. This explores the lines that art bridges between reality and artifice, that is, reality and deception. Viewers interact with the artwork and are given a script. The viewer must become part of the artwork, and so it becomes part of their reality. But what is reality? Is this art, or is it really just a piece of shit? Now, the Generation exhibition at the Scottish National Gallery of Modern Art is celebrating 25 years of contemporary art in Scotland. Over 100 artists have been chosen to make art in more than 60 venues. How are they chosen? That I'm not too sure. It's funded by Creative Scotland, which is in itself lottery funded, Glasgow Life and the National Galleries of Scotland. Here we look at the work of Jonathan Monk. He painted these paintings based on adverts that he saw in Glasgow travel agents that were advertising cheap holidays. Everything Jonathan makes is made from something else. He simply remakes and adapts images that he sees. First exhibited in 1992 at an exhibition called On the Cheap, the paintings were then sold for the price of the holiday which they advertised. This of course explores the value of art and compares it with that of a short holiday. It highlights the cultural changes and the changes in the values over the last 25 years that we place on both holidays and art. If these paintings were sold at that original exhibition, are these yet another duplication of those originals, or are they the ones that he sold that he has asked back from those people who thought that they owned them? Looking at another artist, Jonathan Owen. Here, his art is based on a 19th century marble statue which he has transformed by carving directly into that marble. Does this add value to that original sculpture, or is it vandalism? If he had bought that sculpture, then true enough, that was his to do what he wanted with. But was that him valuing that original sculpture, if by taking it, he then changed it and transformed it into something else? Is it his sculpture, or does it belong to the original artist? How much do you need to change something before it becomes your work of art and not that of somebody else's? Looking at another artist, here we have Richard Wright. Now Richard, disillusioned by the over-commercialization of the art market, paints directly onto walls, and so the work is often painted over at the end of the exhibition. Here he was commissioned by the Scottish National Gallery of Modern Art and funded by Scottish Government to make a permanent work. For somebody whose whole ethos of their work is that the work is ephemeral, to then be funded to make a permanent work because he was the winner of the Turner Prize in 2009, because he made work that was destined to disappear once the exhibition was over, kind of negates his whole ethos of what he is about in terms of the commercialization of the art market. Moving outside the gallery, we look at some of the public sculptures, and here in Leith Walk in Edinburgh, outside St Mary's Roman Catholic Cathedral, we have a work called The Manuscript of Monte Cassino. Now, it was made by Professor Sir Eduardo Luigi Paolisi. He was brought up in this area and he wanted to add something significant to the urban landscape of his childhood. It was funded by a philanthropist, so fortunately the taxpayer was spared the expense of this. But does public art have a place? Is it really understood by the people? There's a panel on this artwork which reads, "A manuscript at Monte Cassino addressed to Paul the Deacon. Letter from my hand. Go now with swift and easy flight as you pass without delaying, through woods, hills and valleys. Seek out the welcoming house of Benedict, loved by God. There the weary always find rest. For guests there is an abundance of garden herbs, fish, and bread. Among the brethren there is consecrated priests, lowliness of heart, and uplifting harmony, as they come together at every hour to offer praise to Christ in love and adoration. The plaque, however, is not that obvious, and you wonder how many people passing by the giant foot and the giant hand and the ankle that is there too really understand that this is about pilgrimage, the foot which travels and the connecting ankle and hand receiving hospitality. Inspired by the foot of Constantine in Rome, it is also a memorial to his home of Monte Cassino in Italy, which was devastated by bombing in World War II. However, it seems that the public would actually like it to be moved to the bottom of Leith Walk in order to attract tourists. And is this really the value of art? Is it just as a tourist attraction? Do people really understand what it is about? And do they need to understand what it is about? Moving on, we then come to the Scottish National Portrait Gallery, and here we have a special exhibition of beauty by design. It's a collaboration between art historians, artists and designers to discover whether Renaissance paintings can challenge present-day assumptions about beauty and the body image. The artwork responds to the body shapes in the gallery's portraits from the Reformation until the Revolution. They are not designed to conform to any sort of UK sizes, and they're not supposed to be gender specific, but to me, I must admit, they look rather female. It refuses the modern fashion with Renaissance fashion, a dialogue between past and present. But is this something that actually would be more at home in an art therapy setting, fighting anorexia? Moving to Glasgow, here there is a collection of art that has been purchased with money from the Art Fund International. In total, 239 works were purchased from 99 artists at a total of over £4 million. And this particular work is one that looks at value itself. From Bern in West Africa, it questions the whole concept of capitalism and consumerism from the perspective of an unstable and underdeveloped economy. Here we have obsolete high-denomination banknotes found in a cart and set it up as an African roadside stall. The notes have no value except as art. Money anyway has little or no intrinsic value. Money is a token of cost and of power rather than any human value. The money reflects colonial values rather than that of the indigenous culture of West African peoples, who do not have a cash or consumer economy. Also in the Glasgow Museum of Modern Art, we come across Tim Steed. Here, in his peephole, a womb with a view, as he calls it, we look at things from a slightly different perspective and at the other artworks in the gallery. But Tim made his name by making axes to raise money to purchase the first community woodland in Scotland, Axes for Trees. So here we see art being used as crowdfunding. However, for him the two are linked. Creativity is as much part of biodiversity as the rainforest. Positive people are important, and one supposes so are trees. Is this yet another function of art? Also in Goma, again, we see more art. This is art made by children, sick children, in the York Hill Children's Hospital. Now these pieces, no one piece has been made by any one individual, but each child has made pieces, and they are hybrids of limbs and other parts of the body that have been made by different people. So as objects, they are worthless. And this art appears to have been inspired by the need to meet the rights of the child in terms of the art, culture and play embodied in Article 31 of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. So not just art as therapy then, but here we have art as meeting a legislative requirement. Well, that is one you maybe wouldn't have ever guessed. In Kelvingrove, we are greeted by over 50 heads displaying 4 different emotions. Now, these were apparently inspired by a collection of marble busts at the museum, and Sophie, in 2006, made these 50 heads for the reopening of Kelvingrove Gallery after its refurbishment. It was an installation that encapsulates the word expression, and which is the theme chosen by the Glasgow Museum in the brief for Sophie. However, there was very little information about this artwork, and it seems from asking the invigilators that the purpose of this artwork is to draw visitors to the upstairs galleries by lifting their heads. Like a release of balloons, the heads bring lightness and humour to a grand building, lifting visitors' heads and acting as a draw to the upstairs galleries, says Esther, the project manager for Kelvingrove, Glasgow. So really, is that what art has now been reduced to? Could you not have made a sign? Kelvingrove does have some wonderful artworks, and here we have the Christ of St. John the Cross, a famous painting by Salvador Dali. Salvador was inspired by a dream, not driven at all by the need to make money. This is an image of Christ devoid of nails, blood, and the crown of thorns, because according to Dali, he was convinced by a dream that these features would mar his depiction of Christ. Also in a dream, the importance of depicting Christ in the extreme angle evident in the painting was revealed to him. In the first place, I had a cosmic dream in which I saw this image in colour, and which in my dream represented the nucleus of the atom. This nucleus later took on a metaphysical sense. I considered it the very unity of the universe, the Christ, says Salvador. In order to create the figure of Christ, Dali had Hollywood stuntmen suspended from an overhead gantry so that he could see how the body would appear from his desired angle. According to the panels, he is one of the first painters to combine science and religious belief, but I rather think there were few before him. Now, Dali sought the permission of the Pope for his theme before painting this painting. It was bought from the artist for $8,200 by the director of the museums, which rather oddly actually bought the copyright as well. Because of that, it has earned the Glasgow Council over £50,000 in royalties, and is now Glasgow's most popular painting. However, when it was first purchased, there was local opposition from artists that thought that the money should go to create spaces for local artists, local Glasgow artists, to exhibit their works of art. So here we see the tension between those that have the vision to invest in paintings, and which will then rise in value, and those that see the value of art as something for all to enjoy, all to take part in at a very local level. Also in Kelvingrove, we see, of course, paintings by the now famous paintings such as Vincent van Gogh. Now, Vincent may now be highly valued, and in fact this painting is now valued at over £30 million. But at the time, he was struggling to make a living. Here, Vincent paints a portrait of an art dealer who he was a good friend of, whom he lived with. But he, even so, struggled to be able to sell his paintings. And this sold for the equivalent of what would only have been £125,000 today. Of course, Vincent is now dead and not able to enjoy the value of his work. At the time, he was driven to paint, but felt that his work was not valued by the people whom he painted and the people whom he painted for. So is art maybe not about fine art, but about fine objects? And in Glasgow and also in Cumbria, you can see where the art, the craft, the industry, art and craft and design have come together. Um, Perhaps this actually is the very early form of art installation, valuing beauty and inspiring people by their environment. Certainly, being in arts and crafts style houses in Cumbria inspired me to want to draw. Ruskin, one of the artists involved in the arts and craft movements, saw artists as connecting with a higher truth. He said, "Nothing but art is moral. To be an artist is the highest test of integrity of any profession." So that then is something worth working towards. That then is something that would attract me to wanting to be an artist. He went on to say, "We are God's creation. We adapt to our surroundings, so it is important to create beauty, to perpetuate that creation, and become one with our Creator." And certainly inside the Arts and Crafts house, you had a sense of that beauty being recreated. It made you want to create. And maybe that is the purpose of art. It is to inspire in us to be something more godlike, to inspire in us that desire to create. Inside the Arts and Crafts house, we see this exhibition, After Ford 151. The Arts and Crafts was a Renaissance movement, and its evolution through modernism to become the cornerstone of how we understand the contemporary. This exhibition presents Grisdale Art's own politicised history of design, a brave new world of objects and ideas that serve as a provocative reassessment of the arts and crafts legacy. Many of the objects are made by curators of the Grisdale Arts who learned the trade and the craft necessary to make them, simply to make those objects. So these aren't made necessarily by time-served craftsmen. This object here, the painter's hats made from newspaper, is in itself a completely worthless object. The hats represent the trade and the kinship with the functional, and the viewers are actually invited to wear the hats and to wear them around the house. The exhibition suggests that for people to be at their most creative, they need to be under stress. I'm not sure I agree with that. But it also questions whether the handcrafted objects are valued outside of mainstream economic models, whether craft is not perceived more as a hobby than a profession. Do we really value the time and the effort and the skill that goes into making handcrafted objects? Another and perhaps strange function of art is the Ziggy Zaggy at Brantwood, designed by John Ruskin. This is a garden of purgatory, and art is used here to lead people through the 7 deadly sins, and to bring them into a sense of paradise. It cost £60,000 of landscaping to create this garden based on John Ruskin's designs, and well, it doesn't look pretty. Here, these lips, which are actually concrete and are painted, are surrounded by Herdwick sheep's wool. They represent the lust, which is near the top of the garden, and the gardener, Sally, says it's not designed to be pretty. She states, "It is there to be thought-inspiring." Ruskin liked to turn things upside down to encourage people to look at new angles. This is an education, not a pretty garden experience. It doesn't matter if people don't feel comfortable with it, just as long as they ask themselves why they don't. So here we have art as education, as a way of cleansing the soul. Also at Brantwood, we see some examples of commercial art. But then, is it commercial art? Here we see an exhibition of an artist, Mark Gibbs. He has artworks that are for sale, but he also makes political statements. You know, this clearly to me is talking about the destruction of natural habitats. And whilst it is a beautiful object, I'm not sure it's one I'd want on my mantelpiece. Um, it has a message, it illustrates an idea. Does it make me greener? Does it make me plant trees? Does it make me think about the environment? I think perhaps if I looked at it day after day, I would. Would I want to pay £1,000 for that statement? Maybe if I was a collector, I would consider it. Is it worth it? Well, how can you say? How can you put a price on art? So what is the function of art then? It seems that it breaks down into three separate functions. There's the physical, it has a practical use, an object of some use, be that educational, be that a functional, like a spoon or some sort of craft. There is the social aspect, those with political messages, those that look at the way we live in relation to other people, that look at our culture. And then it seems that there is the personal, that expresses our own thoughts, our own feelings, that communicates a message that we want to communicate, that talks to us at a therapeutic level, or that is evangelistic and expresses some sort of belief or emotion. And this seems to be by far the most common type of artwork. And that then makes you think, well, is it just a self-indulgence then? Does it really have an important social role? Is political artwork, is that really the most important thing in terms of pushing forward the frontiers, of breaking down the barriers, of developing a society that goes beyond where it is, that moves forward, that grows into a better place? If art has to be political, what is the difference then between a political work of art and propaganda? Well, I think to sum up, we have to come back to John Ruskin. And John Ruskin says, "You will never love art well until you love what she mirrors better." Now, what do we know? What does she mirror? Are we talking about ourselves? And that, given the previous slide, is a possibility. Are we talking about nature? Are we talking about God? Do you need to have that sense of spirituality, that sense of something beyond yourself, that something that can't be seen, a sense of the unseen, in order to really appreciate art? Well, John Ruskin says, "The greatest thing the human soul ever does in this world is to see something and tell what it saw in a plain way. Hundreds of people can talk for one who can think, but thousands can think for one who can see. To see clearly is poetry, prophecy, and religion all in one. If this is art, then art is priceless." Thank you. I will say that once more time. The greatest thing the human soul ever does in this world is to see something and tell what it saw in a plain way. Hundreds of people can talk for one who can think, but thousands can think for one who can see. To see clearly is poetry, prophecy, and religion all in one. If this is art, then art is in fact priceless.